Hello, my name is Marjorie, and this is the story of my romance with Edmund. I'm 68 years old, and until recently I avoided mirrors and cameras like one avoids an old ghost. I never thought of myself as beautiful, not even in my youth when people used to say I had a mysterious air, and certainly not after 50, when the wrinkles began to trace my face like the pages of a diary written by time. Maybe it's because all my life, I was taught to take care of others before I ever learned to look at myself with tenderness. I cared for the children, my husband, the house, and in the end, I forgot about myself. I always found a way to step out of pictures. Take it without me, I'd say, smiling. But deep down, I felt an unsettling discomfort, as if my image didn't deserve to be captured. When someone insisted, I'd smile only with my lips, almost apologizing for my appearance. Then, for my sister's 70th birthday, they decided to do a family photo session. "It's going to be beautiful, Marjorie. Everyone together dressed up," they said. I tried to get out of it, came up with 1,000 excuses, but my sister looked me in the eye and said, "You're part of our story. You belong in our memories." I went reluctantly, got dressed without enthusiasm, looking in the mirror with tired eyes. I wore a blue blouse my granddaughter said matched my eyes, pulled my hair back, and took a deep breath. "It's just for today. Everything goes back to normal after this," I told myself. But something changed, and for the first time in a long while, it wasn't outside of me, it was within. I won't get ahead of myself just yet. That's another story. What I want to share now is that, after that session, I received the photos. And among all the pictures of the family, one stopped me cold. A photo of me, alone, looking off into the distance. I barely recognized myself. My gaze was steady, my expression serene, and most surprising of all, there was beauty, not the kind you see in magazines, but real beauty, lived in, resilient, a beauty I had never allowed myself to see. I cried in silence, for the woman I had been, for the one I had become, and for the one in that picture, finally seen with softness. It was at 68 that I finally learned to see myself as beautiful, not because someone told me so, but because I felt it. Because for the first time, I looked at myself without judgment, and I realized that every wrinkle I used to hide told a story of courage. Every mark on my face bore witness to love, loss, resilience, and the laughter along the way. That day, I showed up like someone going to a doctor's appointment out of obligation and without hope of improvement. The family photo shoot took place in a lovely park, with old trees and wooden benches carved by time, just like me. I arrived early, feeling that chest-tightening discomfort of someone who'd rather be elsewhere. My grandkids were running around, my sister adjusting flowers in her hair, and me, I was trying to hide behind my own silence. That's when I saw him for the first time. A man with silver hair, glasses hanging from the collar of his shirt, and a calm smile. He held the camera like it was part of his body. He greeted me with a nod and a gentle, "Good morning, Ms. Marjorie." It caught me off guard. No one there had used my full name. I smiled politely, then looked away. Soon we began organizing the group shots. I positioned myself at the back, half hidden behind my daughter. He gave instructions, made light jokes with the younger ones, and then announced, "Let's take some individual portraits now, if that's all right." My heart sped up. I tried to sneak away, but my sister caught my arm. "You promised, remember?" I sighed, heat rising to my cheeks. When it was my turn, I walked over to him with short, hesitant steps. I was about to say, "Make it quick, okay?" when he looked at me differently. It wasn't the look of someone checking posture or clothes. It was a gaze that seemed to see right past my defenses. "Your face has stories," he said in a low, steady, gentle voice, "and I want to capture that." That disarmed me. Not the words themselves, but the way he said them. No pity, no exaggeration, just truth. I stood there, not knowing how to pose. I didn't know anymore how to show who I was. He guided me with calm gestures. "Look slightly to the side. That's it. Now take a deep breath." And I did. Not because I wanted to look pretty, but because for the first time, someone was seeing me beyond what I always tried to hide. As he clicked the shutter, I felt something strange, like I was slowly shedding an old veil. He didn't say much, but each click felt like a silent confirmation. "You are here, and that's enough." When he finished, I whispered a quiet thank you, and he simply replied, "Thank you for trusting me." I returned to the group with a lump in my throat. It was just a photo, just a lens, but for some reason, I felt something had shifted, not in the image. I hadn't even seen it yet, but in me. It was like that gaze had awakened something that had been dormant for years. I stood there, trying to act natural, but my whole body was tense. My hands didn't know where to rest. My eyes didn't know where to look. He moved around me with the grace of someone who didn't want to intrude, but knew exactly what to do. Then he came closer, gently, and said with a soft smile, "Excuse me, may I fix your hair?" I nodded almost imperceptibly, unable to say a word, and when his fingers brushed the side of my face, something happened. A soft shiver ran down my neck, and deep inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Butterflies, the kind you think only belong to teenagers when everything is new. But there I was, at 68, with a heart calloused by silences and goodbyes, and they came back, quietly, without fanfare, but alive, so very alive. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, one that kept falling into my eyes, and with utmost care said, almost to himself, "There, now you're perfect." I didn't know what to say. I just smiled. And it wasn't that tight, polite smile I saved for formal moments. It was different, spontaneous, the smile of someone who felt beautiful just for being seen with tenderness. In that simple touch, that unhurried closeness, there was a kind of gentleness that shook me. It wasn't seduction. It wasn't flattery. It was care, respect, as if he were saying without words, "You can still be touched like this. You still deserve this kind of attention." And that broke me open, because to be honest, I thought I was past that stage in life, that after a certain age, we no longer stir someone else's heart, or allow ours to be stirred. But there, between camera clicks and quiet moments, I realized there was still room in me for that kind of trembling, and it wasn't just physical. It was something deeper, almost forgotten, like an old song that suddenly plays and transports you to a time when you were happy without knowing it. He stepped back, picked up the camera, and continued the session as if nothing had happened. But inside me, everything had changed, because what he fixed in that moment wasn't just my hair. It was a part of me that had been out of place for a long time. That afternoon, I understood that love, or something very close to it, can begin with the simplest of gestures. And sometimes, all we need is one sincere touch to remind us we're still alive, inside and out. If you also believe it's never too late to feel something real, leave a like and subscribe. That lets us know stories like this still deserve to be told. 2 days after the session, I was sitting in my favorite armchair by the window, a cup of tea in my hands, and my heart still restless. I couldn't stop thinking about that gentle touch and the way he looked at me, like he saw something I hadn't yet found in myself. My phone buzzed with a short alert. It was a message. "Hi, Ms. Marjorie. This is Edmund, the photographer from your family shoot. I've just finished editing the photos. They turned out beautiful. I'd love to send them to you. Could you share your email or WhatsApp?" I replied politely, though with a flutter in my stomach that made no sense, but was real. He sent the pictures shortly after. I went through each one carefully, smiling at the images of my grandkids, my sisters, my children, until I got to that photo, mine. The one he took when I was alone, staring at some point I couldn't even remember. That photo moved me. There was a serenity there I didn't recognize in myself, but what came next shook me even more. "Marjorie, forgive me if this is too forward, but since we met in the park, I haven't been able to let go of a thought. Would you let me photograph just you?" I read that line over and over, like one rereads an old love letter. There was something in that invitation that wasn't just professional. It wasn't technical. It was as if he were saying, "I want to see more of you." And that hit a part of me I'd long kept under lock and key. I closed the phone, rested my hands in my lap, and sat in silence. What was this feeling? A mix of surprise, fear, and longing. A quiet longing, yes, but alive. It had been years since anyone invited me to anything. Years since I'd felt desired, maybe not just physically, but desired in presence, in attention. It was unfamiliar and terrifying. I went back to the message. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for several minutes until I finally wrote, "I'm honored by your invitation, Edmund. Confess I'm not quite sure what you expect, but yes, I accept." Before I hit send, I read it again and hesitated. I almost deleted the whole message, but there was a flicker of courage in me, the same one that made me pose for that first photo. I hit send with my heart racing. He replied almost instantly, Thank you, Marjorie. You have no idea how much this means to me. I promise it'll be light, simple, like a good afternoon with warm light and conversation. That night, I lay in bed with my phone on my chest, like I was guarding a new secret, and for the first time in many years, I dreamt of something that wasn't from the past. I dreamt of a possibility. I dreamt of being seen again, by someone else, and by myself. His house was in a quiet neighborhood, surrounded by tall trees and large windows that let the sunlight pour in without restraint. It was a Sunday morning when I arrived. He was waiting at the gate with a soft smile and a gentle, "Good morning, Marjorie," which felt like a continuation of the dream I'd been carrying in my chest for days. He held a cup of coffee in one hand and had a calm look in his eyes, the kind that doesn't ask for permission, but welcomes you in. "The place isn't much," he said as he led me inside, "but the light here has this lazy kind of beauty that I love." The living room was already set up. Tripod, camera, a few fabrics draped as a backdrop. Nothing fancy. Everything very simple, but with a kind of care that felt almost handmade. And I, who had arrived nervous, began to relax, as if that space had been prepared not just to photograph me, but to receive me. I sat on the couch while he adjusted the camera. We laughed about silly things. He told me he'd been a widower for 5 years, had been photographing people for over 30, and that even after all those years, faces still surprised him. Faces that told stories without saying a word. "Some people give themselves away in silence," he said. "That's when I love to shoot most." I laughed and said, "Then you'll have a hard time with me. My silence is full of armor." He laughed too. "We'll see if I can get through a few." When he started photographing, it wasn't with stiff directions, but through gentle conversation. We talked about old books, the lost habit of writing letters, the kind of longing that hides in the smell of cake, or a song that plays by chance. And between one sentence and the next, he clicked. Sometimes he'd ask me to look out the window. Other times he'd just say, "Stay just like that, how you are now. Don't do a thing." And I didn't. Because for the first time in a long while, I felt safe just being who I was. At one point, he lowered the camera and looked at me, serious. "Did you know you have a beautiful way of listening? It's like you hold the words instead of just hearing them." I smiled, eyes watering. Maybe it's because I spent so long in silence. When you speak less, you learn to pay attention. He nodded, like someone who understands more than they say, and went back to clicking. But now there was something else between us. An intimacy that didn't need definition, only presence. At the end, while packing up his gear, he offered me more coffee. We sat in the garden, side by side, unhurried, and I knew, right there, in the pause between one photo and the next, that this wasn't just a session. It was an encounter, not just with him, but with myself. "Thank you for today, Edmund," I said softly. He replied, "It was beautiful sessions I've ever had, and I'm not talking about the photos." I went home that Sunday feeling something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't exactly joy, nor was it anxiety. It was like a part of me had been gently woken, and was now trying to stretch after years asleep. I spent the week like that, a little out of it, with scattered memories of the session drifting into my thoughts. The soft light in the room, the smell of fresh coffee, the way he looked at me between one click and another, like someone reading a poem aloud. On Friday afternoon, my phone chimed. A new message from Edmund. "The photos are ready. Can I bring them to you in person?" My heart beat fast, but I replied casually, "Sure, I'll be home tomorrow." He arrived on Saturday with a simple envelope in his hands and that same calm smile. "If you want to look now, I'll stay," he said. I nodded shyly, and we went to the porch. I sat in the rocking chair, he on the wooden bench. I opened the envelope slowly, like someone opening a memory not yet fully lived. And there they were, the photos of me, just me, and somehow, so much more than just that. The first photo showed me smiling, eyes slightly closed, like I'd just remembered something beautiful. In the second, I was looking to the side, lost in thought, with a lightness I didn't recognize at first. The third undid me. I was sitting, looking straight at the camera, no makeup, no poses, just me. And it was like, many years, for the first time, I saw myself whole. "You know what I see here?" I asked, voice trembling. "I see a woman finding her way back to herself." Edmund looked at me with tenderness and said gently, "That's exactly it. You were there the whole time, just hidden under too many layers." I closed my eyes for a moment. I wanted to keep that moment forever, because for the first time since age began to leave marks on my face, I didn't want to hide anything. Not the wrinkles, not the scars. They were all there. Yes, but they were part of the strength I carried. "Thank you for showing me that," I whispered. He answered, "I just revealed what was already visible. Sometimes we just need someone to point out the right light." In those photos, I didn't just feel beautiful. I felt alive. I felt whole, as if every part of me, the ones time took, the ones that held on, even the ones I thought were lost, were finally at peace. There, captured with truth, I found myself again. After that Saturday, something inside me opened, like an old window stuck by time, finally letting sunlight in. The photos stayed on my table, a quiet reminder that I still existed beyond the roles I'd played all my life. Mother, grandmother, sister, widow. I was, once again, simply Marjorie. The following week, Edmund called. He didn't send a message. He actually called, with that calm voice that seemed to choose every word the same way he handled his camera. "Marjorie, do you like freshly brewed coffee? I know a lovely place. Wooden. Tables. A view of the fields. Want to come?" I hesitated for a second. My heart responded before my mouth could. "I'd love to." And we went. And then went again. Once a week. Sometimes twice. He told me stories of his travels, of the people he'd photographed, of lessons learned just by observing silence. I told him about my youth, how dancing used to be my secret passion, and how I stopped doing it after my husband passed. "You stopped dancing," he said once, "but you didn't forget how to move." I started waiting for those conversations like someone waits to bloom again, and I bloomed. Amid coffee cups, soft laughter, and comfortable silences, something beautiful grew between us, but neither of us rushed anything. It was as if we both knew that anything worth having needs time to take root. One cold afternoon, sitting on the same park bench where it all began, he looked at me and said, "Marjorie, I know I showed you photos that helped you see yourself differently, but there's something no image can show." I stayed quiet. My heart tightened. He continued, "No lens can capture the way you change a room just by being in it. The way you listen with your whole body. How you smile with your eyes before your lips. That can only be felt up close." I took a deep breath and replied, eyes misty, "You know, Edmund, I've never felt so truly seen, inside and out." In that moment, without rushing, he took my hand. A simple gesture, but full of meaning. And right then, without a single photograph, I understood that the beauty of this stage in life is knowing how to recognize a new beginning when it comes, even if it comes slowly, even if it comes late. Today, when I look in the mirror, I don't just see the marks of time. I see a whole woman, a woman touched again by tenderness, by curiosity, and most of all, by love. And it all started with a single photo. But what remained? Oh, what remained is invisible to any camera, and eternal in the heart. If this story reminded you that there's still beauty in being truly seen, please subscribe and leave a like. Not for the numbers, but so that more people like Marjorie, maybe like you, feel a little less alone.